Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Sexton. We're going to have a lesson review for lesson 13. Now, we did this in class together, so it would be a really good idea to have your notes from class open next to you while you're working on this assignment. We did some stuff just like this in class. Now, what I have here is not the same problems that are in your packet, but these are some problems that look like them. And we're going to go through them together so that you can see what it is that they're wanting you to do with this. Okay? Now, lesson 13 is starting to think about division and how division is going to work with decimals. We're just going to be using some of that unit form thinking that we've been practicing all year and using that to inform our thinking on division with decimals. Okay? This isn't going to be hard. It's just weird, right? So don't expect it to be hard. Just try and figure out the pattern and then you'll be fine, all right? Now, looking at number 1A. Over here it says 4 groups of an unknown number of tenths is 1.6. And over here it says 1.6 divided by 4 is equal to what? Over here we're looking for a quotient. Over here, we're looking for the divisor, right? Actually, the 4 would be the divisor. We're looking for the dividend. For the last few weeks, we've been looking at numbers like 1.6, and we've been calling it by different names. Yeah, that's 1.6, but isn't that also 16 tenths or 160 hundredths, right? This particular lesson expects us to use that kind of understanding to think through this. For example, if we look over here at 1.6 divided by 4, well, if we call that 16 tenths, instead we have 16 divided by 4, which is a completely different kind of problem. 4 times 4 is 16, right? So that means 16 divided by 4 has to be equal to 4 because you've got that fact family thing going around in a circle there with multiplication and division. Therefore, if I call this 16 tenths divided by 4, I can just say 16 divided by 4, that's just 4. But 16 tenths divided by 4 is going to be 4 tenths, right? 0.4. Now, if I take the same logic over here on this side, 4 groups of how many tenths is going to be equal to 16 tenths? Well, 4 groups of 4 tenths will be 16 tenths, or 1.4. Okay? Let's look at the next one. 32 divided by 8. That's 32 hundredths, but it's still 32 divided by 8. So what is 32 divided by 8? Isn't 32, what times 8 is equal to 32? Oh, it's so hard to write on this thing. What times 8 is equal to 32? Well, 8 times, so frustrating. Wait a minute, let me write bigger. Maybe that works better. 8 times 4, that's equal to 32, isn't it? So then 32 divided by 8 has to be 4. But 32 hundredths, see the decimal? 32 hundredths divided by 8 would be 4 hundredths. So it's 0.04, isn't it? Let's use the same logic over here. 8 groups of hundredths would add up to how many hundredths? Would add up to 32 hundredths. Well, 8 groups of 4 hundredths would add up to 32 hundredths, right? What about this one? Ooh, here's a juicy one. 84 divided by 7. Let's scroll that down a little bit. All right, 84 divided by 7. Well, let's see. 7 times 10 is 70. That's not 84. 7 times 11 would be 77. That's not 84. 7 times 12. It's 11 plus 7. Hey, look, that's 84. So 84 divided by 7 is 12, right? Because 12 times 7 is 84. But this isn't any 84. This is 84 in the hundredths place, isn't it? This is 84 hundredths. So 84 hundredths divided by 7 would be 12 hundredths. You see that? 0.12. Let's use the same logic over here. 7 groups of how many thousandths are going to be equal to 84 thousandths? Well, 7 groups of 12 thousandths would be equal to 84 thousandths. Come down here. 2 divided by 5, I mean, that's not going to work out easy. But what about 20 divided by 5? 20 divided by 5, that's just 4, isn't it? Because 4 times 5 is 20. But what is it I have 20 of? I have 20 tenths. So I'm going to have 20 tenths divided by 5 is going to be 4 tenths. Right? Using the same logic over here, 5 groups of how many tenths are going to be equal to 2 tenths? Well, that's just 4 tenths. Because 4 tenths plus 4 tenths plus 4 tenths plus 4 tenths, 20 tenths. Right? Now what I want you to do is I want you to pause this video and I want you to look in your packet, and if you haven't done it already, I want you to go ahead and finish number 1 in your packet using this as an example. And then hit play again when you're ready to look at the next part. I'll wait here. Are you back? You're back. Okay. Now, complete the number sentence. Express the quotient, that's the answer to a division problem, in units and then in standard form. Okay? So standard form is just a number. That means down here at the end, we're going to write it in just a number. And up here, we're going to write it in unit form. But we're going to use the exact same logic we were using up here on these problems before, right? So I've got 4.2 divided by 7. Now that's the same as how many tenths divided by 7? Well, it's 4.2, but it's also 42 tenths, isn't it? Isn't that how many tenths are there? So this is 42 tenths divided by 7. Well, 42 divided by 7 is 6. So 42 tenths divided by 7 is going to be 6 tenths, or 0.6. That's all they're looking for there. Like I said, it isn't hard. It's just kind of weird, right? And we're going to get past the weird. Let's look at this one. This is 2.64 divided by 2, right? Well, let's see. How are they wanting me to break this up? They're breaking it into ones and hundredths. Well, how many ones do I have? I have 2, right? How many hundredths do I have? I have 64 hundredths. You see that? 2 ones, 64 hundredths. Now down here, I'm going to start doing the math. 2 ones divided by 2 is equal to what? 2 divided by 2 is 1. So that's going to be 1 ones. 64 hundredths divided by 2 is going to be, what's half of 64? That's going to be 32, isn't it? So that's 32 hundredths. Right? Now that's my answer. 2.62 and 64 hundredths divided by 2 is 1 and 32 hundredths. So I'm going to write that in standard form, which is just 1.32. My threes don't like this pad doesn't like my threes. Okay. But that's all we're doing. It isn't hard. It's just weird. Right? Let's do one more. Well, we might just keep going. This is 12.64 divided by 2. Let's see how they want me to break this down. They want me to break it into ones and hundredths. And I can kind of see why, because ones is 12 ones, and that divides nicely by 2. And hundredths is 64 hundredths, and 64 divides nicely by 2. So I see why they're doing that. They're trying to break it into groups that will divide nicely. So how many ones do I have? I have 12 ones. And how many hundredths do I have? I have 64 hundredths. All right, now let's do the math. 12 ones divided by 2. What's 12 divided by 2? Well, 2 times 6 is 12, so 12 divided by 2 must be 6 ones. 64 divided by 2, hey, that's the same one we figured up there. That's 64 divided by 2, that's 32. So 12.64, or 12 and 64 hundredths, divided by 2 is the same as 6 ones and 32 hundredths. Now we're going to write it in standard form. 6 ones, decimal, 32 hundredths, right? And on this last one, it looks different, but it's actually the same. They just want us to decide how to break it up, right? So we've got 4 and 26 hundredths divided by 6. Well, 4 doesn't divide nicely by 6. 2 doesn't divide nicely by 6. 6 does, right? 6 divides nicely by 6. And look at that, 42 divides nicely by 6. So this 4.2 is, we're going to call that 42 tenths. And 6 divided by 6, that's 6 hundredths. Yeah, okay. Now we're going to do this line, but we're going to write it out ourselves. 42 tenths divided by 6, that's 7, because 6 times 7 is 42, and it's 7 tenths. Plus, I apologize for my sloppy writing. I'm still trying to master this digitizer pad here. And then 6 hundredths divided by 6. Well, 6 divided by 6, that's just 1, isn't it? 1 hundredth. So finally, I'm going to write that in standard form. Let's see, I need 7 tenths, right? That's 7 tenths, and 1 hundredth. Boom. So that's 71 hundredths, or 7 tenths 1 hundredths. That's my answer. And if I take 4.26 and cut it into 6 equal pieces, each piece will be 0.71. All right? So everything we understand about division is the same when moving into decimals. Now here, this is a juicy one. They want me to do the exact same thing we did up here, only they want me to decide how to break it up. Do I break it into tenths and hundredths, ones and tenths? I don't know. Let's figure this out. I've got to divide it by 6, and I need to put these into groups that are easily divisible by 6. All right, so let's see. 4 is not divisible by 6, but is 42? 42 is divisible by 6. So this is going to be 42 tenths, right? Because it's 4.2. 42 tenths plus, and that leaves 36. Well, 36 is divisible by 6, right? So this is divisible divided by 6 plus 36. What is it I have 36 of? That's hundredths, isn't it? Yes. 36 hundredths. Also divided by 6. Okay. Now the next step was we actually did those divisions. So let's do that up here. 42 tenths divided by 6. That's 6 tenths. Because 6 times 7 is 42, and 42 divided by 6 is 7, but they're tenths, that's what they are, plus 36 hundredths divided by 6. So what times 6 is equal to 36? That's 6, isn't it? So 6 hundredths So 6 hundredths divided by 6 is 6 hundredths. Now I'm going to write it in standard form. 7 tenths and 6 hundredths. There's my answer. All right. That's what we're doing. All right, go ahead and pause your video if you haven't done it already. Go ahead and finish all of the number 2 questions in your packet using this as an example, and then come back to me when you're ready to do part 3. I'll wait here. You ready? Okay, you're ready. Let's see. Scrolling. All right. Number 3, find the quotients. Use numbers, pictures, words to describe any relationship you notice between the pair of problems and quotients. So the key word here is describe any relationships you notice. So let's see what we notice. Well, first we need to figure out what the answers are. So 32, and there's no decimal in there, so that's just 32, divided by 8, that's going to be what? What times 8 is 32? It's 4, isn't it? Yeah, it's 4. So if 32 divided by 8 is 4, 3.2 or 32 tenths divided by 8 is going to be 4 tenths, isn't it? Now, what pattern do we see here? Well, I see, you might see a different pattern, but the one I see is that 32 divided by 8 is 4 in any place value. Oh, I wish I could write better in this. Value. I know it looks horrible, but just take my word for it. It's harder than it looks. All right, 32 divided by 8 is 4 in any place value. It doesn't matter which place value it's in. A 32 divided by 8, it's always going to be a 4, right? Let's see what happens down here. 81 divided by 9. Oh, everyone loves their 9s, right? 9 times 9 is 81. So 81 divided by 9 is just 9. So 81, what are those? Tenths, hundreds, thousandths? 81 thousandths divided by 9? That's still going to be 9. It's just going to be 9 thousandths, isn't it? So it will be thousandths. Again, 81 divided by 9 is equal to 9 in any place value, right? Okay, hopefully you'll be able to write better than me. That makes me look like I'm a 3rd grader, but this pen and I are still learning to work together. Okay. All right, you know the drill. Pause the video and do this part in your notes, in your packet. Pay attention to the fact that these numbers are different on yours than they are on mine. It's just the same kind of problem. Pause the video. I'll wait here. No, don't come back until you've got those done. I'll wait here. You done? Okay, here we go. Are the quotients below reasonable? Reasonable just means, does it make sense? Is this a good thing to say, a correct thing to say, right? And then explain my answer. So let's see. Is 5.6 divided by 7 equal to 8? Is that reasonable? Well, 56 divided by 7 is 8, because 8 times 7 is 56. So that part makes sense. But this is 56 tenths, isn't it? And this is not in tenths, so this is going to be no. This should be, 8 tenths, shouldn't it? All right, and what about this one? 56 divided by 7. Again, it's 8, right? 56 divided by 7 is 8, but this is 56 wholes, isn't it? There's no decimal. So why would my answer be 8 tenths? No, that's not reasonable. This should be, maybe if I write bigger, it'll work better. This should be just 8. Because there's no reason to make that tenths. That's 56 wholes divided by 7 is just 8 wholes. What about this one? 56 hundredths divided by 7 is 8 hundredths. That sounds right. Yes. That is reasonable. Okay? All right. There's a lot going on in this one, but it is all stuff that we've tried in class, and I hope this helped you out. I will, if you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me, and I look forward to seeing you in class. All right? Until then,